Now let's talk about Yemen. Worst thing happening, and it continues to get worse. This is from Jason Ditz at antiwar.com. He writes, Saudis force Yemen-bound fuel ship to Saudi port. He says tensions are further rising in the Red Sea as the fuel ship Splendid Sapphire, due to dock in Hodeidah, which is the key port in Yemen, has been diverted by Saudi naval forces and compelled to dock in Saudi Arabia. Yemen Petroleum Company says this makes 5 fuel ships, all which had UN security clearance, which are now being held by the Saudi-led coalition. The Saudi naval blockade has them seized or delaying most anything valuable bound for Yemen. This has left shortages not just in fuel but food and medicine as well. Hodeidah remains the last port in Houthi-held northern Yemen and has effectively the only way to get goods in, with the Sana'a airport badly damaged. The State Department made no further comment on the fuel ship, instead complaining about the Houthis capturing a ship full of weapons earlier in this week, demanding that the Houthis immediately release it. And that ship that we're talking about, we covered on the show, I believe, the episode with me and Connor Freeman, and it was a part of, or maybe seems to be a part of, a coordinated response to the 2-year assassination of Qasem Soleimani. So, Yemen, absolutely horrible what's happening there right now, and it's only going to be made worse if these fuel ships aren't able to get to the port. Now, the Saudis made some other excuse for the ships not getting to the port, but at this point, the humanitarian crisis there is so bad, there's really no excuse for depriving Yemen of that fuel. Another really important story on Yemen here, and I'll explain all of it in a second. This is from Al Jazeera. Saudi Arabia could run out of interceptor missiles for its U.S.-made Patriot air defense systems in months, according to a senior U.S. official cited by the Financial Times. So this is very important because the Houthis have the ability to fire missiles and, some homemade drones and stuff like that at Saudi Arabia. I think these missiles and drones are probably pretty cheap to manufacture, although, resources are pretty limited in Yemen, so cheap might be relative there, but they're not super expensive. I don't think they have like cruise missiles or really anything guided. Most of it are just ballistic missiles or drones. And Saudi Arabia has been using the very expensive U.S. Patriot missiles to intercept them, and essentially made sure that its population faces no consequence for its brutal war in Yemen. Not that the princes are necessarily responsive to their people or anything like that, but if there are missiles raining down in Saudi Arabia that may provoke the government to negotiate more, or if the Houthis were able to target their missiles at government infrastructure, things that bring the princes a lot of money, or potentially any kind of royal family real estate or something like that, maybe these are the kinds of things that could really prompt the Saudis to feel like there's a consequence to, keeping up the war in Yemen, because there's really nothing else. Like, they could just bomb the Houthis all day, and the Houthis really can't respond other than these missiles. And so without the Patriot missile systems, the Saudis may face real consequences for their war in Yemen and have to seek some kind of resolution with the Houthis. It was reported in that Al Jazeera article that they brought this up with other Gulf Arab states. They brought it up in the GCC meeting. And so, this would suggest that maybe they're looking to Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, the UAE, or Qatar for more of these missiles, or maybe a country closely aligned with any of them. I'm not sure how many of these countries. I kind of doubt Oman does. Maybe like Bahrain has one because the Fifth Fleet is there, or the Al Udeid Air Base is in Qatar. But I don't know if these are like munitions that these governments actually have access to. My guess is that Saudi Arabia will have to come to the U.S. for it. And if we're prepared in the United States, this may be something that can be blocked. And it would be huge if that were the case. Now, they just had a missile sale go through. And so these being interceptors and defensive missiles and all that, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit of an easier argument in Congress. But if people are standing strong and making a big deal about it, this may be a real chance for the people of America to influence what is happening in Yemen. And so months from now, that could be more, it could be less. I think we're going to see this fight happen in the United States, and it's going to be our next chance to really fight against this war. All right. So on the ground in Yemen, the fighting is going on in the Mareb province and in the Shabwa province that is just south of Mareb. The Saudis are claiming to kill scores of Houthis, and hundreds at times in a single day. They're carrying out dozens of airstrikes, so it's absolutely possible. If you listen to the numbers even the Houthis put out, it seems possible that this is actually the case. Although the Houthis have, since probably April when they launched the offensive, taken most of Mareb, Yemen. And so despite the massive losses on the Houthi side, they've been able to make progress. Now, you don't get the same reporting on the number of government soldiers killed. Maybe that's because the Houthis don't have access to press that's putting that out, or maybe the Houthis, for whatever reason, aren't reporting it as much, or the Houthis aren't killing Saudi soldiers, not Saudi bad soldiers. They not necessarily Yemenis. They could be like Sudanese mercenaries or something like that, but soldiers on the Saudi side of the conflict, and most of the time, I'm guessing, aren't actually Saudi nationals at all. And so they claim to have made some progress, though, on January 2nd, turning back in the Mareb province, although, to what extent this is actually true and just propaganda, I'm not sure. Then the Houthis, the next day, or 2 days later, I believe, just the next day, reported that another 78 fighters were killed on the ground there in Mareb. And the day after, or no, this one's 2 days after, I think this one comes January 5th, we have the report of 200 killed in fighting around Yemen's Mareb. So just so many people being killed. This last report from Jason Ditson, antiwar.com, did mention that some of those killed were among the Saudi bad side, but not exactly clear, if these numbers, how accurate they are, but it probably does represent that a lot of people are getting killed. Now, Saudi Arabia is not just bombing Marib in the areas with heavy fighting. It's also bombing the capital of Yemen. There's no fighting. Nobody is contesting Sana'a. The reason Saudi Arabia is bombing Sana'a, they say, is to target things that are launching missiles or drones or manufacturing missiles or drones at Saudi Arabia. But it could just be to inflict pain and suffering on the civilians of Yemen who live in Sana'a, who are away, when the area is away from the fighting, but yet they regularly are just rained on by American-made bombs by Saudi pilots flying American-made planes. Let's see, anything else on Yemen I wanted to mention? Oh yeah, just with the increase in fighting. Now remember, we're talking about scores of people being killed and everything like that, but I'm guessing that not everybody who's being hit by the Saudi airstrikes is ending up dead. That means more people going to medical facilities and putting more and more strain on a medical system that's already very, very strained. And so if you're taking away the resources and supplies because there's heavy fighting going on the ground, that may mean, less supplies, less equipment, and less room for the children or anybody else in Yemen who's just, dying or suffering with other medical causes that are unrelated to the fighting going on, things like cholera, malnutrition. I mean, I guess they're related in that the fighting is causing that in the first place, but, it's not like you're missing a leg or something from a bomb. I'm not talking.